Dinner and a Book is supported by the Rex and Alice A. Martin Foundation of Elkhart, celebrating the spirit of Alice Martin and her love of good food and good friends.
A Hoosier Chronicle was written by Indianapolis popular author Meredith Nicholson in 1912. It's a powerful novel of politics in a society set in central Indiana, particularly Indianapolis. This book was published at the height of Nicholson's reputation and marked his most ambitious effort as a serious writer. Factually based analysis of politics, the role of legislative bosses, and how progressive reforms were then being promoted in the Hoosier state. Let's meet my guest, Bill Furstenberger, who really knows Indiana. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Gail.
It's good to have you back.
I'm thrilled to be here.
What is this, like author number 8 in our series?
Gosh, I lost count, but it's
Yeah.
been fabulous journey along
It
the
has.
way. Yeah.
I've enjoyed reading these authors, and I'm glad we did this. And I hope you've enjoyed finding out more about Booth Tarkington and
Gene Stratton Porter,
Yes.
Lou Wallace, Theodore Dreiser, the list goes on.
It goes on, yes.
And that's how I found out about Meredith Nicholson, because I really hadn't heard about. Had you heard of him?
No.
Okay.
I
So
thought
don't-
he did
I'll
The
bet-
Music Man. I was so confused.
I don't think many of our listeners and viewers have probably heard about him either. Yet, he was one of the most pivotal Indiana writers in the first quarter of the 20th century. He had 3 national bestsellers in between the years of 1905 and 1912. And this one, Hoosier Chronicle, was his personal favorite, and he said the high watermark of all the books he ever did.
We learned a lot about Indiana, and there are characters in this book, but they're mainly at the high end of society.
Yes,
We
that's
really
right.
don't touch upon the derelicts or the hungry. I mean, but there is a theme that we'll talk about
Sure.
for women.
Women and minorities too, and like any of these historic novels, you have to be, a little bit language. You have to put on your desensitization
Yes.
earmuffs a little bit when you read some of these things, because they're speaking of the times in their language. But that being said, there are some wonderful themes, and especially with women, and we see one grow right up before our eyes too, actually, during
Yes.
the course of the novel.
Yes, and it's Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Sylvia doesn't know too much about her family.
No, she is essentially raised by her grandfather from the age of 3, and because her mother dies when she's very young, her grandfather goes to get her. No one knows who the father is. You find out at the end of the book.
You find out at the end, yes. And she lives with her grandfather, who is a professor at,
Yes. Well,
what's the
they
name?
that's another great thing about this book, is that they use real historical references to places in Indiana. Wabash College is the real life place where Professor Kelton teaches, but they call it Madison College
Yes.
in the book. They also have another, Fraserville is a village town that plays a big role, and we were debating whether that's Zionsville or Noblesville. Not really sure, but it's one of those two probably.
Yes, and so, there are lots of hints here of what's going to come into the future, but just the very beginning. And I think one of the themes is helping women. And the thing is, this young woman is so gracious. She is so smart. She's so kind. She's the perfect woman, isn't she?
Oh my goodness! As a
Sylvia.
Sylvia, as a teenage girl, Professor Kelton and the people around the college call her the young lady of the stars, because
Yes.
she studies constellations, astronomy, mathematics. She learns at the feet of her grandfather, who was a retired naval officer from the Civil War. So you bring in that whole era of Civil War, middle 19th century through. This is set in the present day at 1912. and
Present
it's
day.
just the incredible era of rapid change in American culture, and Indiana was right at the heart of it with politics.
Yes, and it's so striking to me that it was really a forward state, wasn't it? They were working on women's issues, or
Yes.
trying to.
Yes. Yeah.
And this young lady, instead of going to the school featured in the book,
Right.
where does her grandfather send her?
Yeah. Well, she
For college.
for college, she ends up going out east, and again, it's called it's a fictitious name. We don't know, but they make a reference to Vassar College
Wellesley.
being yes,
Wellesley.
Wellesley, but they make a reference to Vassar being kind of the the counterpart to it. And my aunt graduated from Vassar in the 1940s, and so it resonated with me. And
You've
so,
had a little of that rub off.
so they
on
sent
you.
her out east. Is
Yes,
the point? They
yes.
sent her to a
Why do
really
you think
high.
they did that?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure the
It's
answer.
a divisive sort. The author, this is a successful family, but it's not, super wealthy and that sort of thing.
Should I be doing something? We're talking an awful lot here.
Well, that's because it's such a good book, and we don't have
It
that
is a
much to
fabulous-
cook,
It
Bill.
is a fabulous book. It's a fabulous book. And I have some important stuff to. I'm going to start.
Okay, you
I'm going to
start-
start
you
taking
start
off the
worrying.
greens off my
Okay.
berries here.
And I'm going to heat up my grill. What kind of meal are we making? We're making a lunch, aren't we?
Yes, it's just a simple lunch, and you know that anytime you have me on this show, you give me the most challenging cuisine, right? Furstenberger's on. We better make this pretty simple. So, folks, I'm going to prepare a dish of cherries and berries with sweet cream, and
He's
Try
doing
to-
that's one of his first courses there.
that's one. That's
And
yes,
I'm
in
going
the
to
first segment here.
I'm going to heat up some Black Forest ham. This is a lunch, so
It's
it's
a lunch.
fruit
Right.
and it's ham. We could have fried chicken if we wanted to. I don't make fried chicken. I just don't. And so we're heating up some ham. And we have fruit. We'll have a little drink there, won't we? The women normally wouldn't have the drink you're proposing. It's a manly
Well, actually,
man's drink.
in the book, it was proposed by Aunt Sally.
She was a forward
Yes,
woman.
and Aunt Sally is an elderly matron in the book, but sort of everybody's friend, but at the same time keeps everyone in line, including all the politicians
Yes.
and all the people in power. And so Sally Owens, she is having a very serious conversation with Professor Kelton, and she said, let's start this off with a little bit of whiskey and water. So,
But she was used to working with men. I mean, it was a lot of these women, even in the high society, they weren't out working with men so much. These sisters, these aunts, they were very progressive. And they knew
she was wealthy too.
wealthy and progressive, and they kind of helped out Sylvia. Everybody loved Sylvia, the student.
Oh my.
And so we're having a little lunch for these people, and it would be a common thing to have ham or fried chicken, but as I said, I don't like to make fried chicken. It's such a messy thing. And so you've got your cherries.
Ham's a good Hoosier.
It is. Yes, we have pig farms here, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
There's another thing in this book that we learn about right away. They talk about how a town comes to be known as a one-horse town.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah.
I had heard that term, and it was always kind of derogatory, as I
It
thought.
is a derogatory term. So you think in the 19th century, especially of the wealthy elite, you would have your carriage pulled around, and if you were really wealthy, that was with a team of horses. But after the economic depression in the 1890s, it impacted Indianapolis so much that the most popular mode of conveyance was the station wagon, which was essentially a wagon and a carriage combination pulled by a single horse.
Yes.
And they were everywhere in Indianapolis, and so they started calling Indianapolis a one-horse town because.
Well, and they didn't have a large enough road to have a lot of vehicles, and that's how I took it. But in any case, we see how we interpret
well, one
things.
probably followed the other.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you'd have
indeed.
broad thoroughfares
Yes.
if you needed it for the teams of horses. So, sure.
Now we have Professor Kelton, who is the grandfather of Sylvia, and he's a lovely man. You have a favorite, this outdoor man. Talk about him.
So John Ware is the outdoorsman minister.
Yes.
And he plays a critical role, like any really great novel. You have somebody in the cast of characters who is carrying sort of the secret information unknowingly. And he's that person. But he talks about going up to Nipigon River in the summertime with the to do his summer hunting and his explorations, and I'm going to pour my sweet cream over my berries.
Isn't that nice? Look
Isn't
at
that fabulous?
Now see, this is going to be part of the meal. It's just lovely.
And so the way that Ware speaks, he talks and he preaches and he tells stories in kind of this staccato, almost like a Hemingway way of talking. And it's fabulous to just listen to him tell a story and how he sort of spins things.
And he's a man on his own course. I mean, he doesn't.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're going to take a little break here and get all of our food ready for the second part.
Wonderful.
And we'll be right back. We're going to get ready for the second part with our food and our discussion. Tell me what you're going to do with these nice little
Sponge cakes?
Sponge
Yep,
cakes.
little sponge cakes, and we have some whipping cream, and gonna just adorn them with some bright red raspberries, and that'll kind of help fill out some of our berry, theme here that we have going on. What are you doing?
Well, I'm watching you finish doing this work.
Okay.
What am I doing? I'm putting my biscuits in the oven. We're going to time this for about 13 minutes. I'm going to check. And they're big biscuits. And this is something they would have. I don't eat biscuits.
Ooh, I love biscuits.
But it is a good food. It fills you up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And with that, we have some homemade jam. We have some marmalade. That was the package was sent from England, and a friend Janice made the marmalade.
Oh.
We have some cherry jam too that was made. So we have nice preserves. There really aren't preserves because they didn't preserve the fruit, the whole fruit. But we'll have our muffins. We'll have butter, real butter, and the jams.
Well, they talk about making the preserves in the book. In fact, that was one of the activities that they brought the poor working girls, the PWGs from Indianapolis up to Lake Wapagan, which is actually renamed for Wawasee. And they had them making preserves at Aunt Sally's farmhouse that she had there. And so
it's a skill.
Yes, and they were really afraid that these girls who were serving in the roles of like stenographers or factory shop girls who might sweep the floors or do other types of menial tasks, that they were going to lose their homemaking skills, and they wanted to ensure that this would be a preserved skill.
It is a preserved skill, and I think it's a good idea. My mother said, don't waste your time on that stuff. Go out and learn about the world. And so I didn't know how to do any of that. But that's,
But look at where you are today. You're on dinner. You're the host of Dinner in a Book.
Right.
Cooking
Yeah,
everything.
I enjoyed that a lot, too, I have to say. So we have other characters that are so interesting in this book. Let's talk about Bassett. I don't like him at all.
I think as we talk about Morton Bassett, we're going to have to probably coax ourselves a little bit.
We're going to have a little
and fortify
warming
ourselves.
up here.
Yeah, because you need that with Morton Bassett.
He is not a nice person. He's nasty.
He is a power broker, I guess you would say, political power broker, a state senator, but wields power from all corners of Indiana. And so I mentioned earlier that Aunt Sally and Professor Kelton have a very serious discussion over whiskey and water at Aunt Sally's request. So
They're always having those serious discussions.
Give us a little
what are
whiskey.
those gray cubes in there?
So yeah, you noticed those are whiskey rocks, and I was given those as a gift, and you keep them in the freezer, and means that if they don't melt, but it makes your drink cold, and so preserves the taste a little bit better. So cheers.
Cheers. This is new for me.
How about to Sylvia? Definitely the heroine of the...
She is she definitely is, and she's had to put up with this Morton, and we find out later why, in a way, she has to. But he is someone you just kind of keep your eye on.
Yes.
And he's I don't want to say typical, but he is a politician from the get-go.
Well, and he's a puppet master. He's pulling the strings behind the scenes. Nobody really knows everything that he's doing or what he has his hands in on, but it turns out he has his hands in everything.
Everything.
And so if a political rival starts to rise, he knows just the way to bring him down.
Yes, and he's really not, like I say, not very nice. His wife doesn't like to be around him, and his daughter kind of challenges him all the time, and she's kind of a spoiled woman, Marion, but we kind of like her toward the end of the book, don't we?
Yeah, Marion's very strong-willed, where Sylvia takes the path of education to raise her up and elevate her status. Marion does it kind of in more of the old school Wiles way. She's not a great student. She doesn't like to be in school.
Well, she's got Morton's money.
That's true, and she wants to take advantage of the things, but she does eventually realize that she can use her skills to still serve a greater purpose, and so she becomes a society young woman leader by the end of the book. But you don't know that that's going to happen to Marion. In fact, a couple of times you kind of think, something bad might happen to Marion.
And we have this nice young lawyer who is kind of jockeys back and forth on some of these jobs. Yes, he's a nice person. And
he's the thread that kind of weaves it all together, because he's there from the very beginning to the very end of the whole thing.
And let's talk about this funny Alan. What's his name?
Alan Thatcher.
Alan Thatcher?
Alan Thatcher's the son of another Democratic power broker, sort of a rival to Morton Bassett. His father's Ed Thatcher. And Ed Thatcher has all kinds of very shady business dealings of how he made his money.
But he has lots of money.
Oh, he has more money than Morton Bassett, but he doesn't hold the political post. He's just a pure businessman, sort of buying people out, making all these things happen. And so there's this tug of war between Morton Bassett and Ed Thatcher, and then the son, Alan, is just the opposite of his father. So he wants to, even though he lives with his father in this lavish mansion in Indianapolis, every day he goes to work in a furniture factory alongside communist laborers, communist laborers, and he's always referring to the American experiment when he's talking with
it's a great thing, isn't it? This American experiment. All of these people coming, poor people coming from around the world, and they're going to make America very, very important and strong. And so he's kind of like totally opposite his father.
Or blow it up. You kind of wonder, is he hanging out with anarchists?
Yes.
I think is definitely
and we don't
one of
know.
the possibilities.
We don't really know if he blows up anything. It's not. It's not in the book.
So he and Marion go to elope.
Oh yeah.
Right, and this creates a huge amount of tension.
Of course. Her father's not going to.
The two fathers. It's all. You know what? You had to be thinking of Romeo and Juliet, right? In this,
no,
you didn't think of it at all.
No.
I thought of the two families, the warring families, a little bit.
I just thought of the son kind of like rebelling against his father.
Well, there was that, obviously.
Yes, and so these characters are all in this book. Journalism. We have some food. They have this dinner at the hotel, and we said, let's not do this. Turtle soup.
Oh yeah. Green turtle soup.
green turtle soup, and then frog legs.
Frog
And then there was
legs.
some other thing.
They had lobster in one other scene too, but we just felt that wasn't quite Hoosier enough for us, right?
At least today. Yes, I don't know. Maybe you go out and catch a turtle and make turtle soup. My father-in-law did, but
Well, it wasn't like that. It wasn't subsistence. This
No,
was
this is
being
fancy.
served in a country club as a
Yes,
delicacy,
yes.
and yeah.
I've got to check these. When I can smell something baking. Oh no, it has a ways to go.
Not quite yet.
Yes, not
quite
quite.
yet.
We have to wait. So, as we were talking about some of these themes, we know that the role of women was so important at that time. I mean, the changing,
Yes.
and this guy Meredith, he was thoughtful about this, wasn't he?
Absolutely. So you think about this. This book is written in 1912, 7 years before women earned the right to vote. And he has these strong female figures in Sally Owens, Sylvia, and eventually Marion.
Right. There's not a slough off in the group.
Well, maybe Marion's mother.
She's fed up with her husband.
And she's constantly worrying that
Yes.
with Sylvia hanging around, her daughter is not going to get her fair share of Aunt Sally's money when
Well,
she dies.
yes,
And
there's
so-
that too,
But,
yes.
but she eventually comes around because everybody,
But
decides to
she
play
does
nice.
worry. There's no doubt about it. And
yes.
she surely doesn't like her husband. He's a handful.
Yeah, he's
he
never
really
around.
is.
He's
And
not around.
he's always we have no idea. He does appear throughout the story to the very end, and all of them do. I enjoyed reading it, and it's a huge book. I mean, we could have edited this book down a little bit, but it's well done. This is your personal copy.
So both of these are my copies. This is kind of the more common one. This was a first edition special author's copy that has a little poem handwritten from the author in the front. But what I loved about it is that it's wonderfully easy to read. It just flows. And so many of the authors that we read from 100+ years ago, it's hard to read them because it's like it's not the way we talk nowadays.
Yeah.
This is
It's
very
very
enjoyable to read.
But it's long, but it goes fast. Now we're just going to take a moment to pull ourselves together, and we're going to invite you to our Hoosier Luncheon. And in the meantime, we want to show you a picture of the house of this writer in Indianapolis, and we'll be right back. And we are putting the last biscuit on our bread basket for our lunch. This is our lunch. Let's talk about what we made. We have biscuits, we have homemade marmalade and cherry preserves, some ham,
Black Forest
ham,
absolutely,
and
yes.
talk about yours.
So just some berries and cherries and sweet cream, and then little sponge cakes with the whipped cream and topped with the raspberries. And of course we celebrate with our whiskey and water. So
The men
cheers again.
and the women did too. These aunts had some, didn't they? The ones that were in the know and were smart, they had a little nip.
She said a thimbleful before she went to bed every night.
Okay.
So what was your favorite part of the book?
You first.
Me first. Okay. Well, the favorite part of the book, I loved the whole book from start to end. There were so many personal connections for me, and I don't want, it shouldn't be about that. But every page I turned, it felt like, oh yeah, I relate to that. I can feel that. And so that was just, I never would have picked this book up and read it without
Right.
being on this show. So I want to thank
Yeah.
you for
Oh.
letting me explore and do this.
We do read some good books because of this show. And,
Yeah.
and I want to thank you for suggesting this. I had never heard of it. And I had such an old book, I picked it up and it kind of fell apart. And so Bill has his here. Mine is at the library infirmary where they're going to fix it up. And
They do that.
this is simple, but this is a lunch that one would have had in Indiana.
Sure.
1910.
Absolutely, yeah. And my favorite character was the the outdoorsman minister, John Ware, because he just always had a pithy way of telling a story and spinning a yarn, and he went to so many places that are familiar to me that I just felt like this was a kindred soul to my own spirit.
You are an Indiana fellow.
Yeah.
And I know I have to say I like the ants. They were strong, they were smart, and they were opinionated, and
Yeah.
people paid homage to them and listened to them. There's a message there, isn't there?
There's a message, wisdom with age, right? Something like that.
But I'm so glad you could come and bring your historical knowledge
Well,
for
thank
this
you.
book and this period. And we want to thank you for watching. And Bill, then we should have another toast and say,
Okay.
good food, good drinks, good books make for a very good life. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
This WNIT local production has been made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Dinner and a Book is supported by the Rex and Alice A. Martin Foundation of Elkhart, celebrating the spirit of Alice Martin and her love of good food and good friends.